Welcome to the Titan Talks Innovation Series. This webinar will begin in approximately 3 minutes after we allow some additional people to get online. In the meantime, enjoy this video that features our guest today, Carson Durham, Principal Architect from BLDD. Welcome to the Titan Talks Innovation Series webinar. I'm John Corton. I'm director of the Petrick Idea Center here at Illinois Wesleyan University. I'm joined today by Principal Architect Carson Durham of BLDD. BLDD stands for Because Life Deserves Design. So appropriate for today's conversation. How are you doing today, Carson?
I'm doing really well, John. Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for partnering with me today on this webinar. This quarterly innovation series, which IWU first introduced almost 2 years ago, it features alumni and supporters of the university who are changing, they're creating, they're disrupting their industries or their products, the services that are going to exist in the mid-21st century. Today, Carson and I are going to talk to you about design thinking and the design thinking that was applied to create the Petrick Idea Center. And what is design thinking? Great question. Carson's going to answer that question in just a few minutes. Helping out behind the scenes today is our production crew, which consists of 2 first-year IWU students who are both active in our esports programs. Doug Kamsher and Lyndon Wagner are their names. We're really happy they're helping us out today. A few housekeeping items before we dive in. You're viewing this webinar as an audience member, and therefore you don't have the ability to turn on your microphone or your camera. Questions can be submitted at any time through the Q&A feature, and our alumni engagement team that's behind the scenes, which is composed of Amy Crumbaugh and Kaylee Matheson, they'll queue up the questions for Carson and me at the end of the presentation. If you've got a technical issue, you can reach out to the alumni engagement office using the phone number or the email address that's in the chat window right now. A recording of today's webinar is going to be available and will be sent to you in the next day or so, as well as a survey. So we'd really appreciate if you provide us your feedback. So why create a place like the Petrick Idea Center and its integrated Talluto living, learning, and community? A key premise of higher education is that the university contributes to the greater good of society by cultivating knowledgeable and wise and adaptable and resilient students, and by generating ideas that ultimately can improve the human condition. Our unique position in the fact that we have a strong standing liberal arts program, professional and pre-professional programs, as well as phenomenal alumni who work together with us, they provide us and position us very well to address these challenging problems in a very holistic way with a broad perspective and a wealth of expertise. You may already know too, the entrepreneurially minded Generation Z, they're trying to invent their own purpose. So we are committed at Illinois Wesleyan University to meet and exceed their aspirations, to create these solutions that are going to hopefully make this a better place. And the university made this bold decision 2 years ago to create this place, a place where the next generation of Titans are going to build virtuous solutions to vital problems. Carson, your firm at BLDD, you were given the challenging task of trying to design this place. And would you please now define for us the design thinking and the process you and your team use with students, faculty, and staff to design this newest place at Illinois Wesleyan University?
Thank you, John. So what is design thinking and why is it really important to this process? Well, design thinking is a non-linear iterative process that teams use to understand users, challenges, assumptions, and redefine problems and create innovative solutions to prototype and test. Evolves into 5 phases, and those are very important in terms of this entire process. Empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and then ultimately test. The important words here in this process are nonlinear, iterate, teams, and innovative solutions, all of which directly relate to what the idea of the Petrick Idea Center is trying to put forth. For the Petrick Idea Center, we chose this design thinking process as a framework for the design of the building. And the idea here is that we create a highly functional, unique building type that responds to the way that students and faculty will use this particular building on campus. The idea here is that we create a space that allows for success for Illinois Wesleyan for the foreseeable future. Architects use this process all the time to design buildings. The idea of empathy as the first step is really one of the most important steps as it relates to design thinking. We certainly go through the idea phase of the project as well as the define phase, and ultimately we create prototypes that test out there in the world whether our design assumptions and our solutions are useful to society in that respect. That's the same kind of process that students, entrepreneur type students who are trying to solve problems will go through as part of their process in this particular building as well.
After weeks of considering various locations across campus, the decision was made to build the Petrick Idea Center on the southwest corner of the Eckley Quad, right on the corner of the University Avenue and East Streets, between Buck Memorial Library and the Memorial Center. The site was selected for several reasons. We wanted a facility that was going to become an iconic and engaging campus destination. We also wanted a place that had lots of foot traffic, and you've got the Ames Library, you've got the Memorial Center and the Eckley Quadrangle are all adjacent or very nearby. We also wanted a location for easy access to the public and would be clearly visible from Main Street, which this location is right in the middle of what we hope becomes the innovation corridor here in Bloomington Normal. And finally, this site has also offered our design team a great deal of flexibility in the orientation of the building itself. We explored L shapes, we looked at an east-west orientation, a north-south orientation, and after several iterations, we landed on a north-south orientation.
The placement of the building on this site is really exciting because it has such a great presence on the major quad of the campus. It puts this building in a position of importance, similar to a lot of the buildings that are located in that area. It also, this site gives us the ability to allow this design to relate to the other wonderful structures that are in that neighborhood, if you will. It gives us the opportunity to design a building that relates to Buck Hall in terms of its adjacency. It also gives us the ability to design something that relates to the Memorial Center as well. So it's a wonderful site for this type of project. It allows for really strong pedestrian connection for students walking from other areas of the campus. It also gives us the ability to have some parking adjacent to the building, which is really, really important for a structure of this type. And most importantly, this site gives us this ability to integrate the inside and outside of the building in terms of natural light, in terms of landscaping, in terms of connecting to the larger ecosystem of the entire campus. So the image that you see there is an axonomy image of the project's first floor. And this really represents, the design of the building in terms of its overall concept, if you will. This is an image that shows really the sort of the main components of the design, which relate to this idea of design thinking, if you will. So in the image, you see the primary focus of the areas is collaboration, maker spaces, and the forum. This is a really open design solution. The idea here is that each of these components and each of these sort of studio spaces are working together as one. And so that they, even though they have individual purposes, individual functions, they actually support each other in terms of their placement and in terms of their design throughout the spaces. So that you're not very far from each of the other spaces as you move through the idea. So it sort of works as this design thinking idea works. So you start from a point of empathy and a point of defining the problem. You go through the process of ideation and prototyping. Then ultimately you end up in the form space, which is the idea of trying to test your ideas and put them out in front of people to see what the world thinks about them. So it's a very intentional design in terms of its overall layout.
Carson, I love how this design puts all of the various parts of the solution development process all under one roof for basically any type of challenge or opportunity or problem that a student may want to address. And to have it all under one roof, that's pretty cool, because that way we're actually looking to name the entire first floor of this facility a solution center, which that's what it is. So this design also allows students to jump in anywhere in the design process. Some are going to come to Illinois Wesleyan with an idea already in hand. Others may, and they may want to just test it or prototype it, and they need those facilities. So to see how those steps all fit together in one location, I think that tells the whole story. So let's dive in now to show everyone the major spaces within the building.
So the entry is like all the spaces in this building, a multi-functional space, but it also, in terms of its shape and form, is one of the two-story spaces that are in this building. So it gives you a sense of the wow factor as you move into this space. It's not only a symbolic thing, but it also is the space where students and faculty and members of the community will come in and begin to ponder, begin to wonder. So there are things that are at their fingertips that allow them to begin asking these really, really important questions. The other thing about this entry space is that it is visually connected to all the other spaces. So when you come to this space, you can see the entire process. You can see the entire design of the building unfolding in front of you. So you can see from the east side of the building all the way through to the west side of the building. You can look to your right and see the next space that we're going to talk about here in a minute, the prototype central. And then you can look to the right and you can see the studio spaces where you also be working. The other great thing about this entry piece is it begins to tell the story of the Petrick Idea Center idea, if you will. It starts telling you a story, which ultimately will help with students to inspire them. Also in that area, in this entry area is a display area where products and services can be on display that tells the successes of the students and the faculty and the community as they move through and use this particular building. Ultimately, all of this is about being a tool for success for the students who are using their imaginations to create wonderful new things.
I love the openness. I like the brightness. I like the welcoming feeling of the entry. The main entrance faces Buck Memorial Library. So the sun, I can see the sun coming through on a morning. It's going to brighten up that entrance area. It's going to lighten up even that second floor area of the lounge. So I think it's going to be a great way to wake up in the day for those lucky students who live there. This is going to be the entry for the student ambassadors as they do their tours with prospective students and with their families. So that's going to be an important key initial impression of what's happening at Illinois Wesleyan. The information desk is going to have a student employee who's going to understand every aspect of the building and can act as a concierge to students, faculty, staff, visitors, community members as to what's where and what's why. So as you mentioned, talking about that story unfold, they can point them to various chapters they've actually experienced during their time here at Illinois Wesleyan. And I also like the view to the lounge on the second floor. I like how that provides an openness, transparency, and gives those students from the second floor the ability to see what's happening down on the first floor. And the collaborations, they're going to provide a wide variety of seating and places for students to brainstorm new ideas among different people who want to work together for good. And we call that collaborative cross-discipline creativity with a conscience. If you were counting, those are 4 C's, and we call those 4 C's our Petrick pillars. All right, Carson, so let's say a person, or better yet, a team has an idea. They've brainstormed, but now they want to go to that next step and they want to actually build it. They want to prototype it. Where should they go next?
Well, certainly they would go to Prototype Central, which is, I think, sort of the working engine of a building like this, of this design, is that that's where lots of things can happen. So it's a hands-on space for those that want to make things and create things in its physical way. It's also a space for the potential, if you're interested in doing some computer programming and those kind of things, it's also a space where that can happen. And I think that also the functionality of the furniture that we're providing for this space is very flexible. So you've got work table type of furniture. You have storage spaces for students who are creating their own projects so they can store them. And then directly adjacent to this wonderful prototype space is these maker spaces that are both what I would call a clean maker space and a dirty maker space. So what you can do woodworking, you can do welding in one space, but the other spaces, there are printing machines, there are CNC machines, there are places to make things as well. And then completely adjacent to all that is also a studio space. So that studio space is set up to primarily be a classroom so that you can do those types of things in there, but it also, its furniture is allowing that to happen. But the design is so that the classroom space or the studio space has a glass wall that can be opened to Prototype Central, which allows for this sort of cross collaboration and connection between each of these, as well as the makerspace. The sort of clean makerspace has a large door that it can be opened up so that if you are a student who is interested in English, you can clearly understand what possibly a student interested in physics is doing, and then they can go back to and work together and collaborate together. So this is really an important space in terms of the working engine of how this entire building and this entire first floor works together.
I see it as the perfect, safe place to learn by doing. I mean, this is experiential learning at its best. This is where real world prototypes are going to be built through guided training that's offered by students who help maintain and support this space. It's a place for hands-on learning. It's a place for trial and error.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add to that, John, is that, the Prototype Central is really that space that says to students, we want you to make this your own. We want whatever your imagination drives for you. We want to have at your fingertips those things that say yes to whatever problem you're trying to solve.
Yeah, I see them working on projects there. I can see them doing, even for students who aren't sure yet about how to utilize this space and how this process works. So just hang out there, do your homework, observe how others are using the tools and the facilities. That just happens by osmosis, right? So it builds the courage and says, I saw you over there working on it. What is that you're doing? And can you show me how to use that? So I love the flexibility of this space. And I envision it being the summer home of a student startup accelerator. I see this as a space that can be used throughout the entire year as a showcase for just about anything across campus, about anyone across campus who has to showcase what they're creating. This is the place to do that.
Absolutely. And I will say that you can see from this image that the idea of branding, the idea of telling a story is also really important. So you see those design elements that have been incorporated into this space as well.
All right. Well, that's
Prototype Central.
That's Prototype Central. Now, we're getting into, I love every aspect of this building. We've worked and you guys have done a phenomenal job, but you're getting into one of my most favorite places in this facility because I've never seen them juxtaposition like we've got them designed here. Tell them about one of the most unique spaces we've got here at the Petrick Idea Center.
Well, the forum is the second of the two-story sort of wow spaces that we have in the building. And it like all the other spaces, it's really easy. Its placement is really strategic in terms of the entire process. It's easily accessible, both from campus side as well as what I would call more the public side, which is the west side of the building, so that it can connect to the community as well. So this is the space where I think you will find a lot of mentoring taking place, and that's really intentional about the design. So the furniture that we've selected, the way we've designed what we call the learning stair, it's really a community type design approach, so that it's not only great for presentations, and even for performances, but it's also a space where people can learn from each other. It's a larger space, but so it can accommodate lots of people, but it also can accommodate individuals teams that are working together. Again, you see a tall space that acoustically is responsive to some musical performance. It's certainly not some of your best performance spaces that you have on campus, but it is designed to accommodate some of that. So it also is what I would call a casual presentation space, so that when students are doing pitches, if you will, for trying to sell their ideas, it reinforces them and their approaches. So that's really important to it as well. And again, it's aesthetically designed to reinforce the idea of being intentional about what this building is about and telling the story of the students and the story of Illinois Wesleyan University and how this fits into the big picture. It also, I think it was intentional, the idea of connecting this two-story space to the upper floors. We are thinking about this as a complete organism in terms of design of a living learning community. And so this space is also a space that physically connects students from the first floor directly into the second and third floor, which is the housing and where the bedrooms are and the lounge spaces for the residents are located as well.
Great. This next image shows you that view that students will have from the top of those learning stairs or looking through the glass that looks out onto the forum and the amphitheater. And I love the fact that they'll have that 24/7 access to everything that's happening in the Petrick Idea Center. It's a place where people are going to go for that feedback, to get their ideas out there. And it's when you're ready to go prime time, this is the place where you do it. So I can envision, as you mentioned, the students. And a big thing we want people to take away from this webinar is the fact that hopefully you've heard components of this is for all majors. So a student who has a musical performance that they'd like to debut, to get some feedback, to make it and share it with their friends, this is a place they could do it. A film major could introduce a film production that they've created, debut it on our very large screen there, and have some feedback from students there. Computer programmers can show a new website, an application they've designed for a mobile device that can be displayed on those screens as well. It's really going to be a great place for visiting alumni to be able to engage with people, and for corporate partners to come and be able to share with us their problems and their challenges, and have a great place for exploration, discussion, and debate.
Just to circle back on this design thinking process. And so this is if you remember the 5 steps, the last step is sort of to test the idea. And just because this is the end of the process doesn't mean that the building doesn't support, circling back. So it's not only a nonlinear process in 2D, but it's a nonlinear process in 3D. So the building is designed to support, okay, we need to make some adjustments. We need to do some things differently. We have a better idea. And so even though it's a sort of that type of space, it also begins to introduce you to, okay, what should we do next?
And that's going to happen a lot. No one's going to get it right the first time. So it's back to the collaboration area. It's back to Prototype Central. Put on our thinking caps and let's see if we can make a better solution. So there's a lot going on that first story. I mean, It's energizing, but at the same time, we want a space for students to relax and recharge. So where do you suggest?
So I think the second and third floor was really the genius of this building is the living learning community. So you've got a 24-hour day building here. So the upper floors are certainly your traditional residence hall type of spaces. But what makes this space different is that there is the incorporation of the idea of where students can collaborate together, where people can create ideas together, even on the residential floors. There's also spaces where they possibly could use some of the areas to do some prototyping if they wanted to. So it's a true floor-to-floor organism that works together. Where the hope is that most of that activity happens on the first floor, but at 2 o'clock in the morning when when a student has a great idea, when they've been listening, when they're empathizing with someone and said, hey, I think I can solve that problem. They can use the second and third floor, these areas on those to sort of germinate those ideas and work together with fellow students, even though they have an entire first floor to do those things as well.
Yeah, I imagine a place where a student who's a member of roughly 80 students who've been purposely selected because of their interests in innovation and creativity, and part of that, and really want to help build that community. Imagine being in a center like that where they're just as passionate as you, to be able then to go downstairs, take advantage of that facility 24/7. That's game changing. I mean,
Yes,
that's not something that's offered under one roof. I've been to a lot of college campuses all over the world, and I can't say I've seen too many places like this.
Yeah.
The video at the beginning of the webinar gave our audience a preview of the outside of the facility. So let's dive into the exterior for a little bit.
So each of the facades of the images you're going to see here are related to some strategies that we want to make sure that designing the exterior fit into the context of the university, if you will. And so this is a view of the east side, which is really adjacent to Buck Hall, if you will, but it's also the sort of front door from the campus, if you will. And so the design of this is more of a contemporary feel, if you will. So it's we have begun to introduce some contemporary forms that we feel like give the building a wow factor, gives a uniqueness on campus. And so that was really intentional. And we use materials that can be found elsewhere on campus as well. The idea of use of limestone and brick and those kind of things. So, this facade is really the facade that says, okay, this is a unique place. Come join, come in and see what it's about. The next image,
that's the view from Main Street. That's looking east, and right. Visitors who are going to come through the drive through the West Gate, which is also known really well as the Founders Gate. Standing 3 stories, the Petrick Idea Center is clearly going to be visible from Main Street. And the addition of over 30 new parking spaces, as you alluded to earlier, is going to be a very welcome addition to those visitors to the Memorial Center in the southwest area of our campus.
And so, and then this last image is, the image that is the one that you see from the quad. And this is sort of a culmination of a lot of sort of ideas here. The usefulness of these more contemporary materials, the usefulness of, but also the idea of history, ancient and future, the idea of using historical elements like the red brick, like the strong cornices, the idea that we can connect both the past to the future in this design. And we want to be very conscious of that and make it something that can live on this campus for many, many years to come.
All right, that concludes our presentation. We're going to jump into some of the questions that have been submitted through the chat now, and feel free to continue to submit questions. We'll go up until the top of the hour. So first question, what's the timeline for the groundbreaking and the opening of the facility? Well, I can give you that answer is that it's dependent on the success of our fundraising. So some of you out there in that audience may help us to determine that timeline in the future. Who's the building named for? It's named for Dave and Ellen Petrick, who were students here in the 1960s, and they've both been extremely generous with their time, their talents, and their treasure to help in many places throughout our campus. Their company, Bradford Manufacturing, makes technology education products for businesses and schools throughout the world. We also have that living learning community on the second floor that's going to be named for Mark and Noel Talluto. The Talluto LLC living learning community. You can also see with Mark's background being a serial entrepreneur and an investor, he's done extremely well in helping create software and technology products and provided consulting and assistance to our students. He's a phenomenal asset on campus, and that he spends so much time with our students in classrooms as well as mentoring them, and he helps with our seed grant funding events. And he was recently named in 2022 our inaugural Illinois Wesleyan University Alumni Entrepreneur of the Year. So those two people and others who are making major investments in this facility. We're very thankful for their assistance. From an architectural perspective, how do you make a state-of-the-art building like the Petrick Idea Center fit into such a historic campus like Illinois Wesleyan's?
Well, I hope you can see from the images that we had was that we were very mindful of the existing context, the existing flavor of this wonderful campus. And so, but we're also mindful this is a building that talks about the future and solving problems far into the future. So we wanted to blend those two. And so it's a tough problem, but you use design thinking to get there in terms of you listen to the environment, you listen to people, and then you listen to what the site is telling you and the context is telling you, and you develop a design that represents all those things. And so I feel like we've done a good job of doing that.
Yeah, I love the blend and the tie with the limestone from Buck Memorial Library and the brick from the Memorial Center. And you were very conscientious about the height of the building. Hopefully you all think they nailed it. So how does a student qualify to live in the Petrick Idea Center? We haven't worked out all of those details yet because we're still a little ways from opening, but I'll tell you this. We're looking for people who are willing to be a contributing member of the community. We are looking for more sophomores through seniors that would probably be selected to live in this facility because they will have already shown during their early years in college their genuine interest in collaborating, working as a team member, bringing different skills to help solve problems. So that's going to stand out. But that's not to say we're not going to allow first-year students who have done a lot of this stuff already before they've applied to come here as high school students who can contribute immediately to the betterment of the community from what they bring to the table. So you bet those 5-star innovators and entrepreneurs that want to come out and apply for Wesleyan and say this is a major reason why, they'll definitely get some consideration. Any other questions? We have some more coming in. Where are we with our fundraising? What I can tell you, we are 3/4 of the way through our goal of $30 million, which is the parameters by which we've been given to work through. We'll get to that last quarter with your help. For an institution our size, how does the Petrick Idea Center compare to other private institutions? I can't say we've seen too many of these types of facilities in private schools, the liberal arts schools, especially within our conference at CCIW. There may be some, but to see what we're doing in the investment, thank you to our alumni and supporters for making that happen. We're building a facility that's going to give more square footage per student enrollee than most places even offer at the large schools who have facilities like this, whether they're state universities or other.
Yeah, I would add to that is, in my travels to doing research on this, I think you are in a unique position to be in front of this type of program, and I think that you being a liberal arts school, I think the idea of research and contemplation and understanding all the things that students need to be listening for before they begin to solve problems is hugely important for on your campus. So I think it's unique to you, and I think it is a wonderful next step for your students and faculty.
We're excited about it. Even though the building itself is still in development, the Petrick Idea Center is actively hosting programming for students on campus. Can you tell us about some of those? Sure, I'd be happy to. Through funding provided by the Petrick family, already we have an idea center that exists in the Memorial Center in the lower level next to the coffee shop. It's an active, very vibrant space where students have access to 3D printers and machines that can help cut wood and etch on glass. T-shirts have been printed there, buttons, just different ways of making and engaging. And not to say they're going to make products there that are going to turn them into a unicorn someday, no, but they're seeing that process, that iterative design process happen there, because they'll try things out, they'll fail, they'll learn from failure in a very safe place and continue on. We've got programming that exists in the form of seed grant funding opportunities, made possible today by, again, Mark Talluto, but we're also starting to see some alumni step up with in-kind prizes where students can come with basically a back of the napkin type of an idea and get up to $500 to help them get to that next milestone of their idea. We've got a larger event called the Tight New Venture Challenge. Both the things I just mentioned happen each semester, where students can pitch for up to $5,000 in funding, where they can hit multiple milestones with that kind of money. But they're held to a higher level of expectations, and that they've done some customer analysis, they've done competitor analysis, and as they continue to level up with their skills, we've oftentimes provided multiple prizes across multiple students, and we see them coming back and leveling up semester by semester. We offer currently today through the Petrick Idea Center and support from Mark Talluto. Very soon, if you're watching this today, it's actually going to happen Thursday and Friday. We're taking students outside of Bloomington Normal, outside off of our campus. We're taking them to see incubators and accelerators and entrepreneurship communities outside Bloomington Normal. We're going to Chicago with 30 students here in a couple of days from a wide variety of majors. Again, trying to meld the students who come with these different skills to get to meet each other, learn about what is their passion, and seeing how they can form teams and solve those problems. So those are just a few. We did an international trip to Europe in this past May term, where we took students over 3 weeks to see innovation and entrepreneurship in the Canary Islands and Barcelona and various cities in Italy. I think students who went on that trip would say that was a once in a lifetime experience as well. So yeah, the Petrick Idea Center in the form of the building isn't here yet, but the Petrick Idea, as you talked about, facilitated through other donors, key ones like Mark, lives on right now. What are the goals and successes you would like to see for the Petrick Idea Center 10 years from now? Great question. What I hope is what we see is, as it's built, we see the applications that are coming through to live there coming from a wide swath, a wide variety of majors. I think that's going to be a really telling sign that everybody feels that this is an inclusive, safe environment for them to be a part of this story, that they can use this as the start of their story. That could be that they are actively working on a project that they're trying to advance. They could be behind the scenes. We're talking about one of those innovation studios being dedicated to film and audio, video, photography, recording, and editing. If that's the case, then students who may not have the idea, but they're experts in those areas, can then be a contributing member, basically a contractor that oftentimes a business will use and apply their superpowers to help them in producing a commercial or a TikTok or whatever it might be that's going to get their product out there. So I think the big one is the creation of the community. The engagement of our alumni, as we see more and more alumni who want to engage, the more and more companies that want to come and potentially sponsor projects with our students. I think that's going to be a really determining factor, that it has truly been embraced. Community is a big one. We talk about our 4 C's in collaborative, cross-discipline creativity with a conscience. But if we had a 5th C, I'd have to say it's community. So if that community continues to build, I think that's going to be a definite success factor that we're going to want to watch.
You know, and from the architect's sort of designer's standpoint, our goal is always to design a building that's inspirational, that works, that functions well. And we've really done our job if it gets out of the way. So 10 years from now, if a student walked up to me and says, really, this building allows me to be me, and allows me to do what I do best and supports me in that way, then from a design standpoint, that's sort of the best compliment that we could ever get. So I hope 10 years from now, once this is done, that students will see the building as a tool for their success. And that seems like an exciting thing to happen.
Carson, this question is specifically for you.
Okay.
What advice do you have for students who are interested in pursuing architecture?
Well, I think that's a fabulous question. I think that I think you ought to try it. I think you ought to do it. I don't think you. It is an absolutely phenomenal profession. It serves me really well. I'm a creative type. I'm an inventive type, and I just so happen to choose the idea of architecture as part of that. So my advice to you is to find an architect in your community or find someone who does this type of work and ask them to be your mentor and talk with them about their day-to-day process and develop the ability to imagine something from a blank page, if you will. Sort of the idea of creating something from scratch or inventing something that didn't exist before. And so get into the mindset of that, and then follow the design thinking process. And I think that's really important too.
I think that may be all the questions we have right now. I want to thank our audience for tuning in today. I really want to thank you, Carson. You've been a phenomenal partner.
Thank you,
Over the 1.5 to 2 years we've been working on this project. We appreciate the help and the faculty and the staff and the students that have all contributed to working through this design thinking process with the rest of your team. We're all stars. We definitely made the right decision in choosing you to assist us in this process. You're really going to leave a generational type legacy. It's going to firmly establish Illinois Wesleyan as the gold standard for liberal arts, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Very well done. Thank you. Carson and I both want to thank our production team, consisting of students Doug Campshire and London Wagner. We couldn't have done this without you. Their mentors and their supporters, Rick Lund, Tyler Wilson, and Rick Lindquist. We really appreciate your help as well. And last but certainly not least, our friends in alumni engagement, Kaylee Matheson and Amy Carmbaugh. We really appreciate your help to help make this Titan series possible. And again, to our audience, we really want to thank you for attending, asking great questions, and to learn more about how you can invest in the Petrick Idea Center, how you can help us in supporting our goals. Take a look at your chat. There you'll have the contact information for myself and Steve Sebring, our Vice President for External Relationships. Please let us know how we can partner together and how you can assist others with getting us to this finish line to make this big dream a reality. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope to see you next month.